Welcome to the Inner Self-Confidence Podcast. I'm your host, Katie Delamont. Real talk for women who are done overthinking, freezing, or abandoning themselves. If you are ready to feel calm in your body, trust yourself, and speak up without forcing it, you're in the right place. Because confidence isn't something you perform, it's something you build from the inside out. Let's go. Welcome to episode 40 of the Inner Self-Confidence Podcast, The Rest Revolution. Why rest, not sleep, is a missing link to your health, performance, and relationships. In today's podcast, we're going to be going over the 7 different types of rest and while they are all so very important and why so many people focus on the wrong type of rest. Most people only think of sleep, physical sleep at night, when they think about resting or when they think about their body not being exhausted. I just did a corporate keynote last week on this, and I'm still surprised that so many people have not thought about this bigger picture because I was introduced to the 7 different types of rest over probably 7 or 8 years ago. So me and my co-facilitator, Susie, used to teach this at our retreats, our women wellness retreats years ago. But anyways, I'm going to kind of just put this back on you to think about how many of you often feel tired. Now, I want you to think if you feel tired even after you get enough sleep. And what if I told you the reason you feel exhausted isn't because you're not quote unquote sleeping enough? I know, hear me out. But the problem is rest. Unfortunately, and I talk about this a lot, but our society glorifies productivity. And look, I'm a part of society. I get it. I am, a part of the rat race. And I like being quote unquote productive. But unfortunately, we have grown up with this idea that busy is a badge of honor, that burnout is actually normalized. And it's just something that we all just get at some point in our lives because we work hard. Burnout doesn't happen to people because they're working hard. It happens because you're doing work that you don't actually enjoy. People who really, really enjoy themselves and what they love to do don't actually burn out. Now, I'm not going to talk about that, but rest, unfortunately, and I see this as a yoga teacher, rest is seen as something that you have to earn after you've done quote unquote enough. So many people, because I teach so much corporate yoga, resist and fidget their way through Shavasana, which is at the end of the yoga class where you do nothing, right? Shavasana is quite literally the hardest yoga pose there is. And people laugh at me when I say this because they're like, oh no, but a headstand and a handstand so much harder and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no. To actually rest in a short amount of time is the hardest thing to do, and it's actually a practice. This is not something that people just automatically can do. I remember when I first started doing yoga, I hated it. Hated every minute of it, and I hated going slow. I hated the Shavasanas. I hated restorative yoga. Hated it because I had this feeling that it was wasteful, and then I'll just sleep when I'm dead. And that rest was only sleep. Now, rest is not a luxury. It is our responsibility as a human race. Our brain can't rewire itself without deep rest, not just sleep. In order to have neuroplasticity or your brain's ability to rewire itself, you need to attention train the brain, which is mindfulness, and you also need to rest deeply. That's the only way you'll be able to train your brain in a healthy way. Rest is not just sleep. You can absolutely sleep 8 hours and wake up exhausted. I know I have, and I do, and I used to all the time. Rest and sleep are not the same thing. But again, we have normalized the overstimulation, the overworking, the overconnectedness. Now we're seeing symptoms when we're underrested as like snapping at loved ones, unable to focus, procrastinating, emotional reactivity, disconnection. And then we're blaming, oh, I'm just so busy with my kids and work. No, it's because you're not taking your rest seriously. Now, I want to just define rest. It is intentionally giving your body, mind, and soul the time and space to recover, recharge, and restore. It addresses every area of your well being, from your mental clarity to your emotional resilience. Now, statistically, 1 in 3 adults claim they don't get enough sleep. Statistically, 45% of people say that poor sleep actually impacts their daily life, their mood, their focus, and relationships. Now, that's a lot of people, absolutely. And I'm not saying that sleep is not an issue. It is an issue, but we're also not talking about the people who do get enough sleep and the poor sleep doesn't impact their life. So if 1 in 3 adults don't get enough sleep, that means 2 in 3 adults do get enough sleep, but they're still exhausted. That means 55% of people don't say that poor sleep impacts their daily life. These people are getting enough sleep, or so they say, or so their awareness says, but they are still feeling exhausted. They are still feeling burnt out. They are still feeling overwhelmed. Now, I also want us to look at how we rest. And I want you to think about in your own life. Now, again, there's no judgment here. All of my podcasts, all of my teachings is to help you build more awareness around your own life, your own patterns, your own beliefs, your own conditioning. Because if you want to change, you have to first understand yourself, your coping mechanisms that are unhelpful. Then we can learn new ways to be more helpful and to be more healthy and to be more productive, again, in a healthy way. Okay, so I want you to think about these ways in which we say we are resting. Is it resting for you, or is it actually an escape? Now, watching Netflix. Again, no judgment, but is your body actually resting when you do that, or are you just trying to escape? Now, you're probably not trying to escape something big, but you might be avoiding doing something that you actually feel really passionate about, but you just watch TV instead because that's a little bit easier. Going for a walk, well, that is absolutely amazing for the body. Are we just using active exercise, even going to the gym? A lot of people do it to escape, not actually as a healthy attachment or a healthy relationship with their body. They're just doing it to escape or because somebody told them they should. But anyways, that's probably another podcast. Scrolling through social media. This is not resting. So many people that tell me, oh, I just, was scrolling and it was relaxing and that's what I did to relax. I'm like, no, your body is not relaxing when you are scrolling through social media, nor is it relaxing when we have that wine. Now, this is no judgment. I still have a glass of wine every now and again and cocktails, whatever. Wine or any alcohol doesn't make you sleep any better. We know the studies, it actually disrupts your sleep more often than not. Listening to a podcast. Now, I know this might sound a little strange because I have my own podcast, but I actually stopped listening to podcasts. I kind of stopped reading books. I really don't consume a lot of information anymore from other people. I'm trying to make my own dreams happen. And so instead of trying to build other people's dreams up, and of course, I'll support indie authors and my friends' books and stuff, but I'm not buying books from any big wellness influencer anymore or listening to their podcasts or supporting them because I'm just not aligned to their values. And like I said, I want to work on my dreams, not building their dreams. I want to actually embody what it's like to be mindful, to be present, to be aware, to be regulating instead of thinking that I have to keep consuming all this information to be a better person, when really it's about the action that you're taking in your day to day. So, is it rest or escape when you're checking emails before bed? When you're venting to a friend? Now, venting through to a friend can absolutely be beneficial and can be restful for the body, but it can also be an escape. Cleaning and organizing the house. Most people think, oh, but it was so relaxing just cleaning and organizing. You probably feel better after, but again, is it rest or is it escape? Now, rest is multidimensional, and I'm going to go over the 7 different types of rest for your body to actually function. Because if we're only addressing physical sleep, you're missing the 6 other critical needs. Your nervous system requires all 7, and most people are actually deficient in multiple areas, not just one. I'm going to go over them, but quickly, the 7 different types of rest: physical, So that's your sleep. Then, of course, you have mental, your brain. You have your emotions, taking space to be honest. You have your creative rest, which allows you to be inspired and do things maybe that are creative or maybe doing nothing at all. Then you've got your sensory, which is your technology, your social, your relationships. And last but certainly not least, your spirituality or your spiritual rest, which could look different for everybody, but your connection to something bigger and greater than you. Now, I'll go over them quite quickly. I don't want to spend too much time on them because I do have a wheel that explains all this. So if you want a copy of that wheel, send me a message. I'll send it to your email and you can rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. How rested you feel in each one. So of course, number 1, physical. Your sleep, but also your stillness, recovery, and your gentle movement, slowing down and stretching. How often are you doing that? And how rested do you feel when it comes to your stretching, your stillness, your actual sleep? If your body is feeling sore and fatigued, you probably don't need more coffee. You need more physical rest. Then, of course, mental, which is probably one of the biggest gaps because your brain is constantly thinking, planning, solving, and analyzing. That is what your brain does. We do not want to stop that because that means you would be brain dead. Everybody who's like, oh my God, I can't meditate because I have so many thoughts through my head. I'm like, hey, welcome to being a human. We all have 70,000 thoughts a day. So if you didn't have thoughts, I would actually be worried. The fact that you are noticing your thoughts is a good thing. And it's okay. The mind is always thinking. We cannot control our thoughts. I, I'll go over this in a different episode, but you cannot control the automatic thoughts that are coming in because they happen automatically. But you can control where you put your focus and energy of those thoughts. So with 70,000 a day, think of it like a Netflix or a radio station or a TV station. You've got thousands and thousands of channels. Let's say 70,000 because that's how many thoughts we have a day. You get to choose which one you want to turn on, mute, turn off, watch, don't watch. That's exactly what you can do with your thoughts. The ones that come in and you want to pay attention to them, this is why whatever you put more energy and attention towards, that is what you create and manifest more. So if you are constantly thinking about what can go wrong and all the fearful things, you will create more of that in your life. Now, this is not about toxic positivity, but this is about energy and science. And where your attention goes, your energy will flow. Now, mental rest looks like pausing, breath work, possibly stepping away from the problem solving. This is where mindfulness meditation all comes in handy, or 10 minutes of doing nothing. This is one thing I help my clients practice on a day-to-day basis if they possibly can. Now, emotional. This is the rest that I am more passionate about. And it's unfortunately, I think, the hardest. And that is why I probably chose to work more with my clients because most of us are saying we're fine when we're not. And silence is rewarded as maturity. We have grown up in a society, and you can go listen to my podcast episode, What We Don't Speak, We Store. But the evidence on emotional suppression and not talking about how we feel is crazy. So in 2013, the Journal of Psychosomatic Research shows that emotional suppression is associated with higher risks for cancer. Oh, listen to this, by 70%, and a higher risk of cardiovascular disease by 47%. One of my favorite studies is by Framingham Offspring, and it was a 10-year study done over with 4,000 women, all in unhappy marriages. And it showed that the women who did not speak up about their feelings during conflict were 4 times more likely to die compared to the women who were still in unhappy marriages, but they spoke up during conflict. 4 times more likely to die. Okay? Your emotional rest matters. And what that looks like is being honest, which can feel really hard and might not feel like it's very restful, but I'm telling you, you will release so much energy by being fucking honest. I tempted to rename the podcast back to Honest Healing because I do love that name. But anyways, Expression, your voice, your body, you were meant to be expressed, not suppressed. And being real about how you feel, life gets lighter. And you're probably thinking, oh, but Katie, I don't emotionally suppress. I'm just going to name a few micro stressors that you probably do and you don't think anything of it. When you say you're fine when you're not. You laugh off a joke that makes you uncomfortable. You agree to plans you didn't want to do because no felt hard. You nodded along in a meeting when you had a different opinion. You kept scrolling instead of putting a boundary in place with your phone. You let your partner make a decision you disagreed with, but you wanted to avoid a fight. You stayed quiet when someone else took credit for your work, and you swallowed words during a family dinner to keep the peace. Those are all emotional suppression and micro stressors, and they will add up over time. This is why I see so many women 40 plus who are having all these physical, mental, and emotional problems because they have been suppressing all of their shit for so long. And it was normalized and it was praised and it was, if anything, they got wildly rewarded for it. So it's actually harder to now express themselves because they are at an older age, and what felt normal for so long is now hard to do as an adult. Like learning an instrument, learning how to ski, everything is harder as an adult because things are now hardwired into our nervous system and our brain, our neuroplasticity, which is available to everybody, your brain's ability to rewire itself. But the older you get, the harder wired it gets into the brain. Now, this is also the reason why 77% of people who die by suicide are men, because they suffer in silence, as well as 80% of people with autoimmune diseases are women, again, because they suffer in silence. Now, creative rest. This can be surprise people because most people think, oh, but I'm not a creative person. Everybody is creative, but creativity is unique to you. Don't think about like writing or art or, the typical ways of quote unquote creating. What is creating to you? Like what brings you joy? How do you receive an inspiration? And it could look different to you. Try not to compare your creative rest to anybody else's. And sometimes this is doing more creative things like art, music, beauty, nature. But as a very creative person myself, I have realized that I get stuck and uninspired. Like I'm a writer and I love to write, but there are times where I feel really stuck. I call it the underwhelmed and overwhelmed all at the same time because I want to create stuff, but I just can't get my juices going. And a lot of the times, it's not about pushing harder and making myself write every day. It is actually just letting it all go and not doing any of it for a while to just help me kind of switch off. But again, this is different for everybody. But just because you're not a quote unquote creative person doesn't mean you don't need creative rest. We all need it. We're all human. And think about when you were a kid. Are you saying no child liked to be creative? Hello, that's what it was like to be a kid. And you were one once, and nobody loses their creative rest unless you let it go, of course. Now, the last three S's: sensory, social, and spiritual. Your sensory, this is a big one. We know technology. Look, we are attached to it now. It's in our pocket, it's on our thumbs, it is on our face. Everything is a screen, technology, senses. We live in a very big sensory world now. We're constantly being bombarded by information overload, and all the advertisements. So, this is one of my biggest areas where I make sure that I'm really getting rest in this area because I know how bad of a problem it is. And I've seen just in my own self in the past year of being on social media more how messed up my brain has been getting. I'm forgetting so many things. I forget where I park all the time now in the parking lot. It's really scary, to be honest. And I don't think I have a brain aneurysm. I know it's from being on the phone. I can see when I'm on the phone more, I'm way more disconnected in my relationships and my body. I'm feeling a lot worse about myself mentally. I'm like, it's that. Anyways, I'm not going to go into it. We know what sensory and, technology is doing to us. It's not good. Get the stimulation away, like get the notifications off, have freaking boundaries, okay? Like be an adult. Stop being can be like, oh, I'm just scrolling too much. Well, do something about it. Like you can put boundaries in place. Like hire somebody to help you. That is what I've always done when I feel like I'm up against something and nothing is working. I hire somebody to help. Okay. That works when you put money to it. Second, or well, it's the second S, but it's the fifth type of, sorry, the sixth type of rest, social. This is our relationships. And you know this just as much as I know this, that not all relationships are restful. There are a lot of people that will drain you and require you to perform instead of making you feel like you can just be yourself. Please, 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 please pay attention to how you feel before, during, and after spending time with people. Collect your data. Boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. I'm going to do a little bonus episode on the people tree exercise because I love doing it. And I actually had a woman come up to me after the corporate keynote, and she was asking me about an adult friendship that she wanted to put better boundaries in place with. And she was having a hard time umming and ahhing and deciding like how to have a conversation, what to say, how to maturely, whether it's exit or back away, have a friendship breakup. So we had a really great conversation for probably about 45 minutes. And honestly, I have worked with so many clients where this is one of the main things we work with is having boundaries socially, whether it's one specific friend, maybe it's a group, maybe it's, a relationship with a family member, having boundaries with certain people, because navigating boundaries with everybody is different. Not everyone is going to be the same when it comes to boundaries. Personally, as your own self, but also your relationship to them and how you interact. Well, I'll do an episode on that as well. But last but certainly not least, the one that is probably the missing the most and people don't want to acknowledge because we don't live in a world where religion is big anymore. So the last one is spiritual and spirituality. It's number 7, the best one for last. Now, meaning and connection is spirituality. You don't have to have a religion to have meaning and connection. It's you feeling a part of something bigger, whether that's, I don't love the term purpose because the only purpose we have is to be alive and then we die. Like there's no reason for us to be here. Nobody has, I don't believe that we have to be born here and do something special. Like, no, we're just here to have an experience and then it goes away. Like there's nothing special about our quote unquote purpose as humanity. I think our egos like to think that we have a certain purpose. And I think like I do have a purpose in a sense that I'm making meaning out of my own life and what I think my purpose is. But like at the end of the day, potato, potato, it's also stillness and presence. Again, we live in such a sensory overloaded world that being still, being quiet, being present is very few and far in between, and it freaks people out. I tell you, like I'm going to a 10-day silent meditation retreat next week, and people look at me like I've got 10 heads when I say that because they're like, what? 10 days, 10 hours a day, you're meditating in silence. What do you mean? You can't talk? Which is amazing. But I'll do a podcast episode on that too, because people, again, they are filling the void with distraction instead of just being with themselves. Now, yoga, the word literally means to yoke with yourself. That's spirituality in itself, becoming one with your own body and breath and mind. And so many of us are feeling empty even when our life looks good. Now, ways in which obviously you can connect more, there's meditation, there's prayer, there's rituals, there's yoga. You can go surfing to get more spiritually connected, like whatever works for you. Maybe it is going to church, maybe it is joining a certain group, but you find what works for you. I'm not here to push anything, but I will say your spiritual rest is vital. And if you are lacking in any sort of spiritual connection, you're always going to feel exhausted because you're kind of going to have this running in the background like, oh, well, what's the point? And I get that thought every now and again. But again, 70,000 thoughts a day. Of course, that thought comes in like, well, what's the point, Katie? Like everything is pointless, blah, blah, blah. But I have some other thoughts that make up for it and actually boost my attitude and energy because I believe more in the other thoughts. But anyways, your spiritual rest is very important. And when we don't meet our needs through our 7 types of rest, I'm going to say them again: physical, mental, emotion, creative, and then sensory, social, and spiritual. When we don't get our needs met, we just learn how to cope and we distract ourselves with Netflix, shopping, scrolling, overeating, overworking, shutting down, alcohol, whatever it is to you. And then we label ourselves as I'm lazy when someone gives you feedback and you get triggered. I have no discipline. I have no focus. You sit down to do something important and you get easily distracted. Or I need to do better when you snap at your partner or your kid over something small. And you just keep putting this constant pressure on yourself because your nervous system doesn't feel safe when you're under rested. Now, your nervous system, again, is not trying to make you happy. It just wants to know, am I safe or am I under a threat? And when you're under rested, you will always be in a threat. When you are under rested, everything will feel like a threat, or the small things can feel really big. An email can feel overwhelming. Feedback can feel personal. Somebody cutting you off can make you react boldly. Because when you were little, you watched growing up, maybe a parent sitting on the couch, but still answering emails on edge, never actually resting. Maybe your parent falling asleep at the TV from exhaustion, not intentional rest, collapsing. Maybe weekends filled with errands and chores and productivity, never slowing down. Holidays where parents were still working and stressed. One parent doing everything, never asking for help and running on empty. Seeing stress, tension, and burnout normalized as just life. Now, I know we're living in different times. I do get that. But again, your nervous system is wired when you were little. And if you heard growing up, I'll sleep when I'm dead, rest is for the lazy, you don't get ahead by taking breaks, there's no time to relax. Stop being dramatic. You're fine. We don't quit. We push through. You've got nothing to be tired about. Busy is good. If you want something done, you got to do it yourself. What you heard and watched growing up stays with you until you make the unconscious conscious, as Carl Jung says. Instead of thinking the unconscious is just your life is just fated by the unconscious brain. It's not. You can train your brain and be rested. And when you are rested, you will pause and respond differently. You will think clearly. You will have more energy, period. You will communicate better. You will have more incredible relationships because you know how to set boundaries in a healthy way. Boom. Rest isn't recovery. It is our responsibility as a human. And productivity is, I believe, all about our presence, our mind body connection. This is why I'm so big on mindfulness, nervous system regulation, breathing properly, yoga, Tai Chi, practicing, 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 because this is a quote by me, your finest. This is a quote by me. If you measured your day by your presence instead of your productivity, I can guarantee you that your productivity would skyrocket. And I will put my whole life savings on that. Now, if you want to take a look at the rest wheel, the 7 different types of rest, and actually rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, email me. I'll send you the sheet, or you can do it on your own piece of paper. Just do a big circle and then little pieces of a pie, 7 little pieces of that circle. Again, physical, mental, emotional, creative, sensory, spiritual, and social. 7 different types of rest. Now, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest, how do you feel confidence wise and being rested wise? 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest. And then I want you to take that and maybe pick the lowest scoring area, or pick an area that you want to focus on. Maybe it's not lowest scoring area, but maybe that's the area you do want to focus on. And for the next month, I want you to commit to something that you can do every day or every week that is going to help you in that area. And boundaries are going to be the number one thing when it comes to getting rest in any area of your life. And I'll just give you some examples of what that commitment might look like. For physical, maybe that is taking a nap or sleeping better, trying some restorative yoga once a week, or getting a massage. If it's mental, taking an active brain break every single day, brain dumping, journaling, mindfulness, meditation. Sensory, Getting off your phones, the lighting, the notifications. Okay. The best thing I've ever done in my life is get the phone out of my freaking bedroom. I do not allow my phone in my bedroom. It sleeps and stays basically in another room. And honestly, I used to have three alarm clocks to wake me up on my phone. I now have a digital alarm clock for the past 3 years, and it goes off once. I usually wake up before it goes off. It goes off once, and that is it. I now never sleep through a snooze button like I used to. Okay, enough of the sensory. Creative. Maybe that's going out into nature. Maybe it's doing an art exhibit. Maybe again, it could be brain dumping. Emotional. This is where it really pays to get a coach or a therapist, someone where you can process a bit better because trying to do it yourself a lot of the times doesn't work the best, but you can do you and you can journal. Social. This is where you might need a little bit more time alone, or maybe you do need to be more social because you're spending too much time alone or too much time with just you and your baby, and you're not getting enough time with other adults and people that you do love. This is another big thing. It's knowing where your social connections are at and what you need more of. Some people need more time alone. Some people need more time with people. And I personally love my alone time. But if I have way too much of it, it's actually bad for me. I get more anxiety the more alone I am because I get more in my head, right? So even though I really enjoy my time alone, I am very mindful of how much I allow myself to spend in it because I've seen myself when I really pull away and I stop, spending time with other people or making these social things, I actually feel worse. So it's a dance, definitely having my alone time, but also having my social connection, learning your own boundaries and what gives you energy and what drains you. Spiritual. This is where gratitude, prayer, volunteering, meditation, anything you want to do comes in handy. One of my favorite quotes by Pico Iyer, I'm just going to end the podcast today with, is from The Art of Stillness. And Pico Iyer says, "In the age of speed, nothing could be more invigorating than going slow. In an age of distraction, nothing is so luxurious as paying attention. And in the age of constant movement, nothing is so urgent as sitting still." Thank you again for listening to the Inner Self Confidence podcast. If you, again, want that little document of the 7 different types of rest, the rest wheel, so you can rate yourself, shoot me a message. I'll send you the document. If you want to learn how we can work together one-to-one, you can jump on my website. We can jump on a free discovery call, www.katiedelmont.com. Or if you want to read my best-selling memoir, Trust the Flames, My Wild Ride from Mindlessness to Mindfulness, you can grab my book on Amazon or anywhere they sell books, Trust the Flames, and I will see you next time.